Hi, Karen. Hey, Krista. Hi, Kelly.
Hello.
Good to see you
Sorry.
again. We'll just wait a couple of minutes for a few more people to hop on. Hi, Jamie.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Hey, Joe. We might as well get started. There are only a couple more people. If they jump on, that's fine. So it's been a few months since the last time we met. There's been a lot of great progress with our consultants. And so I think we should just jump right into it with Krista and Kelly.
Okay, thanks, Judy. And I'll go ahead and get us started, kind of do a quick update as to where we are. It has been a few months since November, the last time we spoke. And again, there's been a lot of progress that's happened. So just very, very quickly, let me share the agenda just so we have a quick overview of that, and then we can jump in. So first things, we're just going to go through and talk a little bit about who we've spoken to in terms of stakeholder interviews so far, confirm whether or not there's any additional people that we should be engaging as we move forward, talk about the comment process that we would like to have the steering committee work through for the first section of text and maps that we've addressed. And then Chris is going to walk us through more public engagement and timeline questions. I'll stop sharing there. So in terms of public input strategies and interviews that we've done so far, some of you we have talked to in stakeholder interviews. So we had a great conversation with Bill. We spoke with Dan McGrath, the Recreation Department Director. We spoke with Karen. And then Health and Human Services Department, Catherine, and Kara Showers, who's now with the town of Melrose. We also had a great session with the Youth Council, and that was a little bit more of kind of an engagement session, less interview based, a little bit more kind of interactive with them. And so we've had some great ideas come out of there as well. So I think a couple of key themes that we've heard repeated in different interviews. We've heard a lot about walkability and then connectivity between different spaces and sort of connectivity along different types of transportation, whether it's walking, biking, driving. We've heard a good deal about kind of having multi-generational assets and opportunities that bring people together. We've also heard a lot about active lifestyles there. So at this point, we are moving into, I think, more the public engagement phase of things, but if there's any additional folks, boards, commissions on the town side that we think it's still important to engage as we move forward in this process, we'd like your feedback on that. And Krista, I don't know if you have anything to add before we open that up.
No, I think, we hope that the other boards and committees will also attend our public meetings, but if they, at this point, if you feel we need to be touching base with them individually, we can talk about that, or if there are other individuals that we we should have like a one-on-one with. I think that's kind of what we're looking for. I
Did
thought
you-
the youth council was my favorite. That was a lot of fun.
Did
They're
you talk,
so professional.
did you happen to talk to the disability folks, the Disability Commission?
We have not, but I know that is on our list because of the ADA evaluation.
Okay.
And that's partially done, but they will definitely be part of that process.
Okay.
So yeah, we can put a pin in that one for sure.
Cool,
That's an important one. Thanks, Bill.
no problem.
I think it would be helpful to have a presentation for conservation as well. I know there's some representation on this committee, but I think presenting it to the overall board would be helpful.
I think the same for the COA board as well. We had talked about trying to schedule a time you could come to the next meeting or come to one of the
Yeah,
future meetings.
we did. You're absolutely right. We did.
I know you spoke to Dan McGrath for the Recreation Department. Did you speak to the other associations, sports associations for baseball, soccer, lacrosse, or any of those? Or should we be speaking to those too? Since
I
they
mean,
use
there
the
are
field?
probably quite a few. I mean, it might be if we want to invite them to our, like our
Yeah.
public, or when we talk about public engagement, we can definitely invite them and encourage them. I don't know if it's rather than individual meetings, I don't know if it's something to do sort of a group meeting.
That would probably be better and more efficient.
Yeah. I mean, do they kind of share similar spaces, different times a year, or, I mean, I know somewhat, but yeah, I'm just started thinking out loud.
They use the fields. I know baseball, they have their own fields at Fernald Field
Okay,
that they operate that's outside of the scope of the Recreation Department. And so it depends, I guess, depends on the questions that will be asked to them, and see if any insight from them will be useful.
yeah. So yeah, we should engage them and just trying to be how to best do that. If it's sort of a group meeting, we could also do, one of the things later in the agenda is just different, we're talking about a public workshop, but other engagement ways to engage people. We sort of played around with the survey, but if they want a specific survey, we can gear ones just for them, but sometimes people like to talk. So, we can, how familiar you are with them, and also time, like people's time, we want to,
Yeah.
usually they're very busy organizing and
Yeah.
particularly when it's in season. We're coming up into spring now, so I'm sure there's a lot
Yes, it's
getting
gearing up.
organized.
I'll talk to Dan to see if we can get maybe at least the head of each association, maybe on a virtual call.
Okay. Yeah, and if he has any thoughts about. Yeah, and we can think about some questions we might want to ask them. Okay.
I along the lines of some of the things that were mentioned earlier, I mean, I know that folks on the Environmental Sustainability Committee would be interested in giving input, and I just heard that we all said you should go to a lot of meetings in the next few weeks, so I'm hesitant to say you should present to the ESC as well, but it might be valuable, or we could at least make sure that particularly the inventory materials and the updating of the inventory materials would be of high interest there, not that other parts aren't also of interest.
We could also consider maybe like a couple of joint meetings, make it a little bit easier. I mean, because there's only a handful of folks on all these committees. I mean, I think we could probably do that with a round table of 15 or so, right?
I think that's a great idea, and then people could hear the other committees'
Yep, point of view.
ideas and maybe introduce themselves. I'm sure they have they run across each other a lot, but I like that idea. I'm sure the Concom would probably want their own meeting, but I don't know how they feel about maybe joining a meeting like that.
I think that's fine to have it as one meeting. It saves time. I mean, maybe later down the road, you could do a separate presentation to conservation, but I think at this point, it makes more sense. I think that's a great idea that Bill had. having one
Yeah,
meeting.
I think because we are probably gonna, particularly for committees that might have action items too, in the end, I think that would be
Right.
helpful to circle
Right.
back with them. So maybe it's a group meeting now and then we circle back later, and maybe we can work with committee members. And how to, if there's help there to help sort
I
of,
think that makes sense. Yeah, it saves time.
and it give, you know, it also you could offer, you know, contributions as a committee member.
Right.
Yeah, and to your point, Sean, you know, there might only be certain topics that they're interested in the plan itself. So that's also something to consider. I like that.
Okay, any other thoughts on that? Otherwise, I think we are good to kind of coordinate offline to get a joint meeting up and running with all of you folks. Okay, so moving into item number 2, talking about the comment process. So since we last met, we've assembled sort of the first part of the plan, which is really the background research that those inventory sections. So the you know, population and demographics section, the environmental inventory, the open space and rec inventory. And we've also done the accompanying maps for that. So I believe everyone was sent that as part of the invitation. Is that correct? Okay, so you should have both the Word document for the sections 3 through 5 text, and then there's a separate PDF with just the maps, which are a little bit larger and a little bit easier to comment on. So at this point, we have had the chance to do a little bit of an internal review with Judy and Rebecca, and I believe Erin, you also helped out with that. As you open up the Word text document, you'll see that we have gone through and flagged some sections in yellow that we know very specifically. We have questions or are looking for additional input information on. So as you are starting to look into that document, those are areas that we absolutely need some feedback on. We know from this first round of comments from the town that we have some additional follow-up to do. I think really related to the inventory. We've had a lot of back and forth on getting the conservation properties properly accounted for. So we know that is on kind of our list of to-dos. But in terms of having the steering committee folks review, I think at this point we're considering either a 2-week comment period or a 3-week comment period. And we'd ask you all again to kind of review that document and those accompanying maps, and then send your comments back to, I think probably Judy or Rebecca, for them to compile to us. Any questions on that? Or if there are strong thoughts on either a 2-week or a 3-week comment period?
So
I'd say 2. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'd say 2 weeks.
so we can target March 31st, which is sort of like 2 weeks and 2 days.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can we meet somewhere in the middle?
It's not very far in the middle, but.
And just Kelly, if you don't mind, I think you can offer the level of detail or comment you want to provide. Like some people like to read the whole thing and to redline it. You don't have to do that. If you want to just focus on areas that you have particular knowledge of or focus on, you can do that. And if they're, you know, and that's what our ask is. Like, we're not asking everybody to read the whole thing. I think we're comfortable with, I think with all of us there, we'll have everything covered, and we can always follow up. But again, you know, it's what if they're, you know, we're not asking everybody to read everything, but if you are so inclined, you can do that as well. So
So the background information, I'm sorry, was from old reports. I know I sent you some stuff, demographic stuff from the master plan, which is currently going on. But that's where you got a bulk of the information and the old plan, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And I'm just going to turn my video off. I'm getting sort of some messages from my computer that my resources are low. So just to make sure that I don't lose you or you lose me. Thanks.
Okay, so in terms of kind of a target date, we could do the 31st of March. If you want an additional weekend, we could go for April 3rd.
I think the 31st is fine.
Okay.
I'm
And
not going to
March-
speak the rest of the
No one else is raising any concerns there. So we'll go with March 31st, and I'm sure you'll have kind of emails from us reminding you if the following weekend rolls around. And again, as Krista said, you know, focus on those areas that, you know, you are most concerned about. We've already flagged some areas that we know we need some help on. So if, you know, you're running along those, we appreciate that help. I will also be following up with a few folks that have been flagged in that document. I think, Bill, that's mostly you. So be on the lookout for my email arriving in your inbox this week. Thank you in advance.
No problem.
Okay. And then I think that's it for kind of comment process and data gaps. Krista, do you have anything else to add, or do you want to move on to the public engagement?
No, and I just, you know, if there, as you read, just thinking through what sort of, we don't anticipate reviewing in detail the document at our next meeting, but if there are sort of things that you would like to discuss at the next meeting, again, this is more context inventory, sort of our setting us for just kind of bake background information. We can always put it on the agenda if there's something of particular concern. So it's not something that we're going to debate and discuss. But if there is something that you are interested in talking with the group about, we can do that. So it may be if you wanted to send some of that to us as well. And we might see something like if there's comments that might not agree or what have you. I don't know. Typically happens, but it might. But that's all I had to add for that. Do you want me to move on to number 3, Kelly?
Yeah, I think we're good to do that.
So I guess between 3, I guess we could talk about a little bit about 3 and 4. So we do want to start to schedule our first public workshop. I did get, and just thinking about other public engagement that would go along with that, like a survey or concurrent survey. And I know when we talked last, there was concern because of the master plan update process, just too many surveys, asking people too much of them, and just being mindful of that. You also asked about open space and recreation as part of the master plan process, and I do have a schedule that was sent, that Erin had sent earlier with what was going on with the master plan. And I just didn't know if that was still on course, and then we can sort of use that as a touch point for when we think we would want to schedule our first meeting. So I had that you are currently, so did you have your meeting on the 1st?
It's February 1st or 4th. So
Okay,
over a month ago. Yeah.
Yep. So you guys are still on track, and right now you have a survey open.
Yep. It will be closing on the 20th.
Okay.
So on Monday. Yeah.
That's exactly what I have. Perfect.
Okay, great.
It's so nice you guys are on your schedule. I love that.
Not always the case, but yeah, we'll take it.
So if we look at our timeline, so if we wanted to think about our first workshop perhaps in late April. So if we started so that the survey would close, and then we would have a few weeks until we would have a more specific event about the open space and recreation plan. And then you have, Erin, that the first master plan draft would be in early May. So that's sort of kind of in the middle of those kind of big things.
Yeah, I also think I think that would be pushing it too. I think it would probably be a little later. So I think we do have that late April, early May, mid-May time to play with.
Okay. So for our first workshop, we, just to kind of give you a sense of what kind of we had in mind, and you can kind of give your feedback. We sort of start with trying to understand needs. Because we want to, our section 7 is all about describing open space and recreational needs. So we ask sort of 3 general questions. What is the town doing well for open space and recreation? What could be better? So what is the town doing but could be better? How do you improve that? And then the third would be, what are some new ideas or new things the town should be thinking about? So kind of 3 general questions, and we do small groups. I don't know if I'm sorry, I don't remember if we were considering in person or virtual, but either way, small groups. And Horsley Witten would bring their team, and we could do facilitation around those 3 questions. So there would be a short presentation in the beginning, and we can give, brief overview of sort of the snapshot of those sections 3 through 5, but really trying to focus most of the time on small groups. So I see, Haley, your hand is up.
Yes, I was just curious. I believe last time we talked about possibly getting some data sharing between the surveys from the master plan and ours. Is that still happening, that we're able to kind of cross-reference each other's data?
Yes, Erin did send that information to us. So those questions are, that is a good point. So yeah, so we can double back and just make sure that, I don't know how specific the responses were. That's a good question. And I'm sorry, I can follow up with that about how, if those questions are asking the same things.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but we can follow up with that, but maybe we start with a date or general time frame, and I can follow up within the next week with sort of how, some suggestions for how the meeting would run, some small groups, discussion, questions.
And just to note, so for turnout reasons, when we did our one master plan meeting in person, we had about the same amount of people as we did. Actually, that's not true. We probably had a little less if you included all of our advisory groups of the public at the in-person meeting, just something for this group to think about. And compared to the hybrid, which we did, or not hybrid, I'm sorry, over Zoom, the last meeting we did. So the third of the fourth meetings was in person, and then the rest were all Zoom. And we had about 40 to 45 people, but I would say the third meeting was a majority of the advisory group. And so just something to think about. I'm sorry.
I think Zoom would work better. Because I don't really anticipate a huge turnout, so I think it'll be easier on Zoom.
Okay. And we can still do the breakout rooms and things like that.
Yes.
Did we should we choose a date, and then we can put together sort of a logistics plan that just, I can confirm sort of what, making sure our questions aren't repetitive, and just sort of lay out an outline of how the evening would go. And then kind of what, if you expect around 40 people, I think we could do probably 3 groups or so, 3 to 4 groups. And I think we would definitely have the Horsley Witten staff to do that. But if anyone on the committee would like to facilitate, I'm happy to include you instead. That's always encouraging to do that.
So were you looking at the end of April?
Yeah,
Because Okay, is the third week, I'm just trying to see which week is school vacation week.
Right, that's the first thing is school vacation, which I probably, yeah,
17th?
is it the week of the 17th?
I don't know, Erin, is it the week of the 17th?
Sounds-
Someone who does not have children.
Yes,
is
yeah,
that
it is. But
Okay,
I've been trying to plan something different too, and I know that a lot of our boards will probably be meeting the week in the sixth. Correct me if I'm wrong, Bill and Judy. The weeks of the 10th and 24th, right? The second and fourth week,
Okay.
correct? That's when
They
usually
kinda-
town
they're
council,
all over-
planning
they're all over
board.
the place. Yeah, I think you're kind of all over the place with those, right? Because I think, Jimmy, aren't you guys on
Like-
opposite of the planning board, right? Opposite weeks?
yes, yep.
You're
Yeah.
on opposite, yeah. And then, but I think that week just lines up where like planning board is the same week as ZBA, and then the town council is usually on the second and fourth.
No, I got you.
So, but yeah, and then Concom is the opposite. So just something to be mindful of.
Yeah,
I just
no, I appreciate
don't want to
that.
pull people from the
Right.
meeting.
Right, so what about a Thursday night, maybe the 27th?
That works for me.
All right. Perfect. All right, so
Sorry, I think the 27th conflicts with some Wakefield Committee Volunteer Appreciation Night. And just if we're looking to invite people in from various committees, that might be, that's a rare in-person event.
okay.
For a lot of the committees. Oh, sorry, you said I was sorry, my apologies, I'm looking at March.
Yeah.
The high technology of a calendar is beyond me this evening, I apologize.
It's not always your friend. It really,
You're not alone.
you're not alone. I know, I have to double check myself. Yep, so April 27th, which is a Thursday, is there a time that works best?
Probably 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock, and thinking hour and a half tops.
Mhm.
All right, and would we use the town, I'm assuming we use the town Zoom or,
Yes.
okay,
Yep.
okay. Just for, okay. All right, so I will follow up with sort of a summary of how the evening would go, making sure the questions are suitable. We're not repeating what was asked in the master plan. Maybe we can get a little deeper because sometimes that's not as detailed when it comes to, I know it's more long range, so maybe there's some opportunities to ask some different styles of questions. Perfect. So I will follow up with that. And then the last item, so were there any other things that you would like me to just be mindful of or to follow up with on the public workshop itself?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Are there any other, I know we talked briefly earlier about just some focus group meetings. Are there any, are we sort of done with surveys for a little while? I just want to be mindful, do we want to work on creating a survey for the open space and recreation plan?
I'd like to see a survey. I don't know how
Okay.
anyone else feels.
And again,
Yeah, I think that's always good information to have. And I mean, based on the response we've had, I think it all depends on how long it is too.
Right.
yes, understood. And again, making sure that we're asking different questions. I think, and again, I think we can get a little deeper, a little more detail, ask some more specifics. Okay, so we can work on that, and it would be nice to have them sort of coincide with the workshop. So we can also encourage it during the meeting, maybe before and then after. So the timing with that. So I can also follow up with that as well, sort of some suggested questions, probably more than what you might want to ask, but just as a way to sort of get some idea of just what could be asked, and just, you know, put some different options in there. But recognizing we do want to keep it short and simple, but also asking some valuable information. Are there anything, just with that in mind, is there something specific that you're interested in for the survey? Are there any topics or questions that you think, and we can sort of think about that as we start to draft something?
I just want to make sure we make it accessible, not just a digital survey for people who may not have access to computers, that we could have possibly at the Council on Aging, because I have a few who won't want to go online to do anything.
I was going to bring up the same point. That was a great point. I was going to say something like suggestion boxes at town hall or the library. Maybe
Right, that's a good idea.
Index cards, either with the questions or just the question on the box, and they can write on the index card the answers.
Okay. Okay. I think typically it might be sort of a sheet of paper. But definitely a hard copy of the survey and where to return it if there isn't a spot at a particular place. I think that would be coordination with the library if they would collect them, or where in town hall they would be. But yeah, a way that is not just online and not just digital, and making it simple. So maybe thinking about where that distribution would happen. So we had Council on Aging, library, town hall. And then also for the digital version of it, and just thinking about distribution lists. I'm assuming perhaps the town has a general list we can talk with.
So our communication manager typically puts those on the town website, and we have like a subscription thing for news and notices. So we'll probably be going out through that, and then be on the town website. That's usually how we do it.
And she can create a poster for you too.
Yep.
With like a QR code and the locations to pick them up. So you just get her all the information, and she's great about getting it out there. And we have all our billboards, her kiosks in downtown that they put them all on.
Yep.
Okay, great. So we can do a flyer that can be posted, has a QR code, a number or something, maybe a contact information, where to get a paper copy if needed. So we'll put together that too. We'll do that, all part of that.
You could probably add the Civic Center for pickup and drop off too.
Okay, great.
The sustainability committee's put a lot of effort into doing a lot of public outreach and education this year. So we've got a big presence on all the unofficial town Facebook groups, which each have thousands of people on them. So if you forward something to me that's kind of social media friendly, or we can rework it, but we'll help distribute that as well.
We can definitely do that. Yeah, your all's help to sort of reach your networks. That would be great. Yeah, on social media. And we can create sort of a little graphic that can be posted in different formats, and you can choose the one that best fits your needs. So we'll kind of create different things to choose from. And if you need sort of like a little intro to go with that post, we can do that too, to help just some wordsmithing and things like that.
What's the timeline of the survey? Our May newsletter does get mailed out, so that reaches 4,000 people that are identified as 16 over in the house. So I don't know if we're doing it before May or if it's in that same time frame, because that's a good way to reach the 16 overs from us.
Definitely. I think we would, my thought was maybe we kind of overlap the public meeting. So we could do an announcement about the survey, and also invite people to the workshop, and then use the workshop to keep it open after, so they can continue to answer questions. So I think we would want to get it in your April newsletter. So you would have, what would be the deadline for that?
April doesn't get mailed out, so it's not as big of a deal, but that's okay. We could still put it in there. It's just in the next week, I'll be sending April off, but that reaches less.
Oh, I see, I see. Oh, we're already in the middle of March. Can you
Mhm.
imagine? Okay. But we can I think May would be equally beneficial, so I will make sure that that is sent to you, and you can just let me know what format, size and things like that, or if it's just a blurb, I can provide that. Okay.
And is this the only survey we're doing, or will there be other ones?
I think we are just doing one survey in 2 public meetings.
Okay.
Internet, bring myself online for a little bit. And our second meeting can be, we can be a bit more, we can talk about, that could be a completely different sort of format, but we can talk about that when we get there. We usually like to do it when we have sort of strategies and actions or something for people to kind of react to at that point, to make sure they heard what we heard what they said and we're on the right track and that kind of thing. So a little bit later on in the process. All right. I think I have enough to get started, and I'm sure you all will have feedback for me. Any other direction for me or thoughts?
No, I think you've covered everything.
Thank you.
I have one, excuse me, I have one question. When you do these surveys, do you have like a minimum amount of responses before you consider it successful?
We are not creating sort of we put it, it's one of many tools that we're using. We don't, we take the answers that we get, and if it's a small number, we just sort of recognize that it's just representing a smaller group of people. We might feel we want to extend it, the time frame that it's open, and maybe do a little better, different kind of outreach to get more people to take the survey. So I think we can sort of gauge that. I don't know if, Erin, how responsive people were on surveys for the master plan. I know we've had certain open space and recreation plans, we have thousands of responses, and it just was like exciting. And then maybe a few hundred in other communities. It just depends on just a community and how they respond to surveys. But success or not successful, I think we kind of it is what it is. We're not looking for statistically significant or anything like that. It's just one tool that we use to try to reach people.
Will the survey have a section at the end for an open comment if people want to add in any notes about other ideas that maybe we didn't think of or address?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's important. We also like to add sort of the who responded, sort of demographics, or are we kind of like getting to know you, and that helps us understand who responded, but also who is not responding. And that can also, to your question, Jim, like if we need to sort of do better outreach to reach a certain demographic or group of folks that we're just not getting any surveys from. So we kind of use that as a gauge as well. And that would be optional. People don't have to respond to those questions, but it just helps us, your age, and those kinds of things. But it's another tool, but yeah, definitely some open-ended questions, people expressing in their own words.
Are you going to be sharing the survey for feedback as like a shared document, or just each of us get back to you with our comments?
Is it, we could do a shared document. I don't know
I
how.
say that and we don't have access to that in town, but I find that very helpful.
I mean, we have done like a Google Docs kind of thing.
Mhm.
I don't know how the town, you know, some are more strict than others in using that kind of stuff, but we're happy to post. We also do SharePoint. And you know, I sort of keep it open, recognize, you know, we all have to be careful about who we share it with, just because I have problems with Microsoft and SharePoint, just even within my own organization, but we could do it that way where you can, so it looks like it's Word. I don't know if folks are familiar with SharePoint. It's just like using a Word document. We could do that as well. Yeah, because it's nice to see everyone's comments and feedback in one spot. I could start with that and see how well.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that's what we're using right now with MAPC, right? Is SharePoint.
Yep.
And I think that's been just helpful. So we're not, it makes it a little easier for you guys.
Okay.
We're not all repeating ourselves. But I just was curious.
I don't want to be the person arguing for this because I've been very frustrated by this, but I think there's a difference between town employees and committee members. And since this planning committee, like I was appointed to a committee, I assume everyone was, right? Or at least the non-town employees. So what we've been told multiple times on our committees is that if more than a quorum is editing the same document, it is then a unannounced town meeting because it's deliberation. So
That's a good point.
you know,
Yeah, that's a good
so we can all email comments to one person, but we can't have an email group where 8 people are emailing. So, and again, I really don't want to be the
No,
person but just it took us a while to get the hang of it.
I know it took us 3 years to figure that out, right? That is a good point. I guess we have to you all have to individually comment on it. That seems to be the response.
I don't think that's a big deal. So that's as long as
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, honestly, it's just more work for you. So.
Well, it's a
great for us.
it's going to be, you know, 10 questions at the most. So I think we can handle that.
The joy of merge documents.
But I do think, but it's the but the stuff that Kelly was talking about, I think that's going to be our biggest challenge. And I guess we're just kind of asking Judy and Rebecca to sort of help us pull that stuff together.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, that's a little more challenging
Right.
than is giving us comments on a survey.
Yep.
All right. Nice try. We almost had it.
Sorry. Oh.
But I'll tell you, John, that's the first time I've ever had that comment, but I'm just thinking back to other committees, but I don't think they are sort of like a formally appointed committee. I think it's just sort of like a working group, and that really there wasn't any open meeting laws associated with it.
I'm not a lawyer, but what I was
we don't
told
wanna
No, you're right, Sean, you're right.
that we cannot edit the
You're right.
things that we were putting out over the Facebook groups, that we could not edit that text together in a shared document. That one person had, and basically we came down to it's read only. So I can read the document, but I can't edit it.
Or you can't provide a comment either.
Over email, one person back, but not in a
One
shared
person
document.
back to the person that's getting it is okay.
That
And then-
one-on-one emails is okay, but once 8 people are editing a document, it's deliberation.
No, that's
Put
fine.
my hands up, but I
You
did
don't
wanna.
wanna, it's not worth it.
Now I'm spreading the joy.
And it's not worth it. It's not worth it, really. Okay. And I'm sure once I start to send you guys stuff, you'll have more feedback for me. But I've got a lot to do right now, so to get organized. All right. I think that's all that I had for that last item, Kelly.
So do we want to wait to schedule our next meeting, or we're going to do it after the forum?
Yeah, after the forum, I think
Okay.
it's a good time to, just to get, we can have a summary of that. The survey will still be on, but we'll have some feedback on that. If, we could schedule it now, or if you wanted to wait, until after.
Yeah, I think we can wait. I think that's fine. I think what you've done so far looks great. It's really, really an upgrade, I think, from the other plan. Not to disparage the other plan.
It's a
But
difference.
exactly. It's a fresh perspective.
Thank you.
You really put a lot of, it really, the amount of work you put in really shows. It's great.
That would be Kelly.
Yes, Kelly. You're wonderful.
We're happy to have her.
A raise may be in order.
We appreciate the fast feedback. Also.
All right.
Kelly's like, is this meeting being recorded? Can I vote?
It is. It is.
Share
And
that
that's-
Zoom link.
We had that's so funny. We have a client that we were working with, and they were actually interviewed about a public meeting we were having for a comprehensive plan. And the interviewer was he just thought she was wonderful, and she gave all these really great answers. And he said, you know what, you deserve a raise. You should tell your boss, like, on the radio. And it wasn't even that it was recorded. It was just announced across the radio wave.
Right.
Way to do it.
Now we just got to get one.
Well, I'd like to publicly announce that I authorize a raise for everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. And it'll give you some time back this evening.
Yes, no, this would be great. Thank you. This is a great start. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
All right, have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.